let me know. I'll help.
Thank you.
You know, that way I just wander in
We get
and out.
into a tough spot already now.
Yeah, just do that,
You're
because,
pretty fluid.
yeah, well, yeah, so I can do the basic stuff, so.
We're live. Okay. Do we have the at-home folks with us also? Okay.
We're
who's
live.
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Miriam. I didn't see you folks on the screen, so that's why I asked.
Yeah, they're here. I see. That's your dad
Okay,
was-
there it is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. I call to order the meeting of the Manassas Park Governing Body for September 1st, 2020. And first, we have our usual statement. Per the General Assembly's approval of the Governor's amendments to the biennial budget, the governing body may now meet electronically without a quorum actually assembled in a single location and without the in-person governing body members voting on the participation of those who are remoting in. The following benchmarks for the meeting this evening have been met. First, the governor has declared a state of emergency for the current COVID-19 pandemic in accordance with Code of Virginia. Second, the declared emergency makes it impractical or potentially unsafe for the governing body to assemble in a single location, and guidance from state and federal governments support this determination. Therefore, the governing body will be meeting with various members participating electronically through GoToMeeting. Third, the meeting is to discuss or transact the business statutorily required or necessary to continue operations of the governing body. Fourth, the governing body will make available a recording or transcript of the meeting on its website in accordance with Code of Virginia. Fifth, notice has been and will continue to be provided to the public using available methods. Lastly, we have made and will continue to make arrangements for public access through electronic means, including the ability to comment. Those participating electronically are Councilmember Miriam Machado, Councilmember Hector Sendejas, and Councilmember Hasib Javed and Vice Mayor Banks. Those participating in person are Councilmember Alana Mensing, Councilmember Donald Shoemaker, and Mayor Jeanette Rischel. Okay, next we have approval of the agenda. It will be an amended agenda. We have the addition of 9F, which is a discussion of private personal property tethered to city property, and 9G, which is a virtual learning childcare program. Per city attorney earlier, we have no closed session. Is that correct, city attorney?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Do we have a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed, abstained, motion carries. Next, we have a moment of silence, and Councilmember Mensing, would you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone signed up to make a public comment? Any emails or Facebook posts or anything? No, okay. Next, we have a presentation. And, well, I guess presentation information combined from our registrar, Ms. Patricia Brendel. Thank you very much for coming tonight.
I'll be brief. I just want to give you some information on what's occurring in our office right now for the upcoming November 3rd election, and give you a little bit of brief history on what we had and what we have now.
May I ask you to take your mask off to speak into the microphone? This way the folks at home will be sure to hear.
Okay.
Thank you.
The number of registered voters that we had in 2016 was 7,746. The number of registered voters we have now is 8,516. It's a difference or an increase of 770 voters. Our numbers are not as high as we expected because of the COVID and the closure of the DMVs. It's starting to uptick again, and so we can come back again as we get closer, but we expect to go over 8,600 for this election, which is high for us, high for
Okay.
Dan, so very exciting.
Is that
active?
active and inactive or just active?
I'm sorry?
Is that active and inactive or?
Yes, that's together.
Okay.
The
Wow.
number of absentees requested in 2016 were 1,206. The number of people who voted by mail, requested to vote by mail, were 423. And as of today, we have requests for mail ballots of 1,146 and counting. This has created a lot of work for us. We're excited, and we are working hard and diligently to keep up with the requests that are coming in daily.
Wow.
Absentee starts on September 18th, so if you've requested a ballot, do not expect to see it before then. And we're asking that for those at home who've already applied, please stop reapplying. We have 3 different groups that mailed out absentee ballot applications, and people keep thinking they need to reply every time they see them. So it's adding to the workload. Again, you can always call and check with us if you're not sure if it's gone through. But please do not reapply if you've already done so. The General Assembly is currently in session, and there's some major changes that are going to take place and are very quickly going to be approved. They are paid postage for all of the return ballots that we send out. There's $2 million set aside by the governor to repay us for the postage that we use to mail out and get the ballots back to us. Ballots that are received through the mail by noon on the Friday following the election will be counted, whether they are postmarked or not.
Can you say that again, please? I'm sorry.
Ballots that are received by noon on the Friday following the election will be counted, whether they have a postmark or not.
So that means they could drop them at the office if they don't have a postmark. That would mean
I'll
they
get
would.
into that in a minute.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there's a postmark and it's coming through the mail, as long as we get it by noon on Friday, we'll count it. The state already had come up with the decision that due to the fact that we're doing ballot tracking now, sometimes there's not going to be a postmark on the ballot when it comes back. So we can't tell which ones actually have made that postmark deadline or not. So they decided to count them all.
Okay. Okay.
We're also doing the ballot tracking, so people can actually log into a website and see where their ballot is in the process. So we'll know where it is. That was not approved by the session, that was approved by the state board at a prior meeting.
Is it going to be similar to like delivery confirmation? Is something similar to that?
They can log on and they can see that it's been delivered.
Oh, wow.
It could be actually out in a truck, but it's gonna show it as delivered. So as long as the post office is scanning them and tracking them, we can too.
Okay.
So it's gonna help with people saying, I never got my ballot. We'll know where it is in the process, and if we need to, we can remail them.
Cool.
Voters can now correct their ballots that would normally have been rejected due to the fact that somebody did not follow the instructions enclosed with the absentee ballots, which means as soon as we get them, we do an outer envelope opening. We still can't see your ballot, but we can check to make sure that your name, your address, and your signature is on there. And if that's missing, we can now call, email, or write you a letter telling you that you have a chance to come correct those errors that would have deemed that ballot to be rejected. And you have by noon on Friday following the election to do so. Okay.
Wow.
The big one is the drop boxes. We will now have to have drop boxes at the 3 polling locations on election day, but we will also have to have one here at City Hall. We are still waiting for guideline from the state board on how they have to be implemented. We're trying to do them in an efficient but secure manner so that everybody can get their ballot in, but that the ballots are also protected from any kind of fraud or tampering that people may think would go on. So as soon as we know what the guidelines from the state board are, we're going to be working with the city and have already been to get some changes put in place so that those can be picked up on election day. So just so you understand what this all means, most likely we will not know who wins the election till Friday and or maybe the following week. This will also carry into the governing body, the city council members, all the way up and down the chain due to these changes. So just as a warning, you're not going to know election night all of the results.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Are you done with your presentation? Okay. Let's start with questions. Let's start with the folks at home. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
Yes, please. Is there a place in the website that we have a link for this information, how to request a ballot by mail?
We will have that link. The ballots are not ready yet. The candidates were just picked a couple of days ago. We're working on getting the ballots produced and printed. There's some more litigation that has to take place before those can actually be posted. And we don't want to get a ballot up there and then have to take it back down, confusing the voters. So it's going to be a little while. But we have updated our city website, our page of the website, with quick links for people to register to vote, to check out their polling place with a click of the button, and to apply for an absentee ballot online that goes right to our computer in our office, so it's really easy for us to process. So that all has taken place.
Thank you.
Do you have a follow-up?
No, Janet, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add, for those at home, on our website, just go to City Services and find voter registration, and that's where you'll find what she just said.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed, comments or questions?
No, I got no question at this time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
I have a few questions. Thank you for the briefing. The drop boxes, is that just going to be for election day, or when are they going to be installed?
They're supposed to take place 45 days before the election. So as soon as the ballots go out, they have to be ready and in place just at City Hall. So the ones at the precinct are just for election day, for people who maybe decided to go there instead of coming up to City Hall to drop them off as they would have in the past. So 45 days before the election.
Is this all going to be counted by the drop boxes and the mail-in votes? They're going to be counted by your absentee precinct?
Yes, they're going to have to come in on the following Friday. We're not sure if it's all of them, 3 of them. We've decided that we're going to have to pay them to come back in because it's such a big commitment they're making to that. And they're going to have to take off from work or do something extra to come in. Again, we don't have all the logistics yet. Until we get them from the state, I really can't answer some of your questions, but they have to come back in. It's not something the board can do.
How are you with election day officers? Do you have enough?
Yeah, we just today got a list of 6 from the state board. We were able to fill every last position we had needed. So,
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we're excited about that. So, yeah.
Yeah, that is real good.
My final question is, in terms of when you have to report the votes, has that been extended to the localities, or do you still have the same deadline as all the other elections in the past?
So from what I know right now, we will have an election night reporting of all of our precincts where they stand at a certain point of the evening. Anything coming back from the polling locations, the provisional ballots, and those people fixing their ballots by the Friday will all be held until noon, at which point they'll all come back in and start tabulating the results. We are still being told at this point that we will still have to have everything in before that next Monday. So unless they extend those deadlines, that's where we have to meet.
Okay. Wow.
So it could be a late night over the weekend.
Yes,
So-
that could be. Do you have a follow-up, Preston? Vice Mayor Banks, do you have a follow-up or comment?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I think he's done. Councilmember Mensing?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but 45 days before people can start coming into in-person absentee as well?
Yes, the September 18th is the first day the ballot will be available.
Okay.
Going forward, we actually do our mass mailing on Monday, and people can actually come in and start casting their votes at the ready.
And can they do that on Saturday and Sunday too, or just Saturday? Or
There's 2 Saturdays.
Two Saturdays.
Right before the election. It's October 23rd and October 31st,
Okay. Thank you.
and from 9 to 5.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Thank you for coming in and presenting, because, us candidates have a stake in this. We're going to be a little antsy because if we don't know on that night who wins, it's going to be a different kind of election day or election week or, 2 weeks or, it depends on where we're at, I guess. So on election day, you will only have people that voted in person and at the actual 3 precincts. And then will you have the results for people that voted absentee, but you have them already in hand?
Yes, we're counting the cap. We have 9 people in there who've been working all day trying to get through them. So what we have in hand on election day and stuff that comes in throughout the day in our office will be given to them after we put it into the computer. They will calculate those. But anything that's at the precinct till 7, they don't do provisionals. The electoral board would still do those, and any of those mistakes being able to be corrected till that Friday at noon, those would not be in the results, obviously.
Right. So we will have the only people that will be counted after election day itself will be ballots you receive on Wednesday or Thursday or I guess Friday morning. And then people that have to come and correct, like a signature and address, a name is what you were saying on the absentee that you already have in hand, but they can still come back.
Right.
Kind of like if they voted in person and voted provisionally, they could still come back then, even if it's a mail-in ballot, correct? Also, people that don't have ID that actually come in person, they will still have till noon on Friday to verify identity, yes?
The ID laws have changed.
Okay,
So you do have to provide an ID, but it no longer has to be a photo ID. You are now able to do a statement swearing and affirming who you are on election day instead of providing the ID. So no longer do you have to come back to the registrar's office, provide the copy of, your ID or whatever. It should cut down on the number of photo ID provisionals that we had.
right.
We never had many to begin with.
right.
So
It's kind of like what it was before, where you had to do the statement, affirmative statement, kind of. But then the people after election day, so we may not know 100% of the totals until you said Friday or Monday. Will you be able to give us a number that night and say we have 83 absentee ballots that we have not received back? Like, could you be able to, because you've sent them out but you haven't received them, would you be able to give us a number like that?
quite honestly, I cannot guarantee that because we don't know if they're all going to come back late or not at all. There's always those people who change their mind and then they'll go to the polls. We have that a lot. So we have no idea of knowing how many. We'll know how many's still out there. But again, you're going to have that reporting on election night. So if it's a runaway with the results, you obviously know. If there's 80 ballots out and you have like 160 lead, then you obviously know there's no way there's going to be any kind of catch up in that instance. But for us to go back and actually try to count what's still out there may be a little difficult.
Right. Okay. Do we have the risk, and maybe not here specifically, but maybe statewide, of some kind of litigation after Election Day because it's so close and some candidate doesn't like it, and it ends up gumming up all the results because then there's a question, or are these rules in place without fail? These are what we're going to follow, and I can see a sore loser being out there saying, well, I had all these, sample ballots. They never, these ballots, and they never got returned, and I could have won. And you know what I mean? Just somewhere.
We always have litigation. We have 2 right now that are pending, that are holding a ballot production. election, and we can't even do our instructions
Oh, okay.
until the governor signs these changes. So everything's in like a holding pattern. I can't tell you what's gonna happen after the election. You can read the news all you want, but what really happens is what really happens. You know,
Yeah.
I have no way of knowing what's gonna come after election day.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's really close, there would be a recount, obviously, but you know,
Oh, gosh.
until that's called, we try not to worry about that.
Right. Yeah.
You have enough to worry about right now. Yeah.
Step at a time.
Absolutely.
Just one more thing, you may have some more questions, Mr. Shoemaker, but the voters are now able to apply to have an annual ballot mailed to them. A lot of people are taking advantage of this, so right after the election, we'll be mailing out a form to all the voters who said, yes, I want to have an annual status put to my record. We'll be sending that out before December 15th. If you return that with that information on it, it will keep you up to date to the following December. We had to get them back onto a schedule. So we're well over 600 people right now who've applied for this. So it is a big undertaking after the election to go back and have to do individual mailings to each of those households.
Oh, my
Yeah,
goodness.
and it's increasing.
The amount of work that has been added to your department is incredible.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Um,
okay.
But so not all voters would get that, just the 600 or so that are currently in the program.
They're not, anybody can apply. It's just-
Right, but you're going to resend just to the group that already is in it. They'll get another one to, do you want to re-up, basically?
The period ends. They could actually be in line on election day and say, give me the application, I want to apply. And then we would have to send that mailing out to them to get them on that schedule. So
I
it's
didn't-
growing.
I didn't realize we had so many.
Yeah, 700-800, maybe more than that when we're done.
Yeah. How are you doing staff-wise? Are you properly staffed now?
We did hire, thankfully, to you all, a full-time individual who's working in our offices doing wonders, is grasp of the knowledge of what to do very quickly, and is on board and going and just flying colors. So he has been a wonderful addition to our staff. Our assistant, my deputy, actually, she's been added, we've added some hours to her so she can come in and help keep me up to date. It's still hard to keep up with it. It's just, every day the mail is just being dumped on us and dumped on us. And there's the other things you have to do with training and stuff, but we're keeping up with it as best as we need to. We will not start working late hours until I have to, because it's important for staff to have downtime.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but we're doing the best we can.
That's right.
Right.
Thank
I
you.
guess one of my questions is for the office to be open till 5 o'clock like the rest of City Hall now that you have additional staff? I know before the trade-off was you were by yourself, so we didn't ask you to do that. But now that you have 3 staffers in the office, and with the level of citizen participation,
Let me comment on that. Councilmember Shoemaker, we do not control the hours of the registrar's office. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Brendel, but the Board of Elections does. So you do not technically respond. You don't answer to us or to Laszlo.
We had thought about doing that back when the golf course was going to open. And watching the number of other departments who are now closing earlier, decided to leave it alone. We work through lunch. So we don't get to leave. I don't get to leave. My other staff, some of them do. But we work through lunch. We have to stay open all day long. And so having that extra half hour is important to get out and get some fresh air. I will tell you though that during the 45 days, if somebody's in line to vote absentee, we're stuck there helping them to get through that line. No longer is it 4:30 and we close. If there's 60 people in line, we stay till those 60 people are served. If there's 500 in line, we stay till the 500 are served. So we don't just close down at 4:30 and run. You know, we will be here for the voters who need to do that as long as they are in line by the 4:30. So I don't want to change my hours. People are used to them right now.
Right.
And with the fluctuation with the other departments doing it, I just got to the point of, we just need to stop. We need to wait. Maybe when we go to the new City Hall, everybody can get on the same page, on the same hours of operation, and then maybe at that point.
Would seem to me that would be a consideration for you to make in conjunction with the electoral board, That's not for us to make. It's not our place to micromanage the hours of the registrar's office.
Well, I just remember that a previous city council actually agreed to it because they took the staff away from her during the recession. So they allowed her to use less hours because she worked through lunch and she was by herself, so that she wouldn't have to close in the middle of the day for lunch. That was the part of the agreement, because I know that you had staff before that were cut.
We never had additional hours to 5 o'clock when I had additional staff. So this wasn't set when the original registrar was in place 40 some years ago. So we just never changed it. It seems to be a big undertaking for us, having to get those approved hours, having to advertise them. People are used to them now. So again, maybe when we move to the new city hall, it's something we can look into. I don't want to confuse my citizens anymore than they already are. So.
Yeah. And we thank you for everything that you do. We know you've got a lot of responsibility right now. Thank you. And that was a great presentation. Do you have any follow-up?
I have a question for Laszlo. Are we ready, security-wise, to have people for 45 days in the building after 4:30, after 5 o'clock that are standing in line to vote? Are we ready for that on our side?
Yeah, so we have a police officer who's assigned, and then we also have, remember at the last meeting you authorized the additional Parks and Rec part-time staff to facilitate social distancing. But your point is well taken. If it's going to be going past 5 o'clock, we may have to do a budget adjustment, because we were assuming, the hours of 8 to 5, so we may have to ramp up a little bit of those part-time hours to plan if we start seeing that trend where it's consistently going past 5 o'clock. We're going to have to probably come back and get a budget adjustment because we're going to be incurring a lot more cost.
Right, and I'm also thinking of the few days right before personal property being due.
Yeah, that's why
personal property this year is due on a Monday.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like the Thursday, Friday before, and then that Monday we could get slammed on both sides, because people might stand in one line and say, hey, I'll vote while I'm here. And they'll go from one line and get in the registrar's line because they're already here at City Hall. And they figure, well, I'll just do two things together. And so we might have a few days that might be very long.
Yeah, and that's why we had the item at the last agenda to authorize to keep the social, to actually use staff, because we were relying on volunteers in August. That wasn't going to fly for this. We needed the security of actually paid employees to help with line control and other things.
Yeah, I know you're already 6 steps ahead of us, Laz. I just wanted to bring it up for.
But it is a good point in terms of budget impact. If we're going to keep seeing longer days, and that is going to have an additional budget impact on our CARES Act budget.
Okay.
It's going to be a little difficult making sure we go, okay, don't lock the doors. We're trying to get everybody inside with the social distancing if the line should be long. We're more concerned about the Saturdays. The whole last week that the ballots are available is a very big concern. We have additional election assistant people coming in to help with the ballot and the scanner and stuff, but we are concerned about the lines that last week on those Saturdays especially. We could be here to 7 to 10 o'clock at night. If people are willing to wait, we have to help them. So trying to make sure we keep order, walking back in the line, something we haven't done in like 10 plus years, where we have to write the names backward to make sure nobody line bumps, while we're waiting for the people to get through. It's not something we've had to do in a long, long time. So.
Okay. Wow. Thank you.
Yeah. 90% turnout, right? Right, Patricia? Right, Patricia?
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Good luck.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Take care now.
I have a question.
Oh, yes. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I? Okay, thank you. Patricia, is there any instances where the mail-in ballots can be rejected?
What was his question?
Are there any instances where the mail-in ballots can be rejected?
Yes, and that's why they're allowing the voters to come back in to correct the issues. So most of the time, the voters will vote, and they don't fill out the back of the envelope that the ballot is enclosed in. You have to put your last, first, and middle name. You have to put your address there, and you have to sign it. They have removed the witness requirement due to COVID. So if that's missing, we're not going to reject it.
Okay.
But you do have to have your name, your address, and your signature. We've also been told to hold ballots back, which is not something we've done before, in case we have to reissue the ballot. Again, I don't even know under what circumstance I would do that. So I'm waiting for instructions from the state board. But again, I have to hold ballots back where typically I would give them all out on election day except for our CAP, our absentee precinct. Now we have to have a little bit of a stash there to help for some reason.
Mhm.
So they will be given the opportunity to correct it. I'm just concerned that the person truly is absent on vacation or they're not able to come back to fix it.
no.
It's going to be rejected.
Did that answer your question, Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, that was a good explanation. And I do have one more follow-up. On the, I guess, the mail-in application form, I guess it asks for, personal information and social security numbers. How long are you keeping those application forms, and what happens to it? Does it get destroyed, or is it filed away? What happens to those application forms?
Okay, so the form now just asks for your last four social digits, your name and your address. Phone number and emails are optional. The address is required. So what happens is we take those forms, we're required to make copies of them, one copy, and that gets sent to the courthouse on lockdown after the election in case there's a recount, so they can examine them if they need to. We keep them under lock and key in circular premises here on City Hall. And after 4 years, the Library of Virginia gives us permission to destroy them.
Okay. Any follow-up questions from the folks at home?
Okay. So on the form, you can only do a 4-digit. You don't have to fill in the whole. I'm looking at the form right now in front of me. I was just wondering, curious.
You can put the full if you want, but most people are just putting the last four.
Okay, yeah, I see. It says last 4 digits required. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Machado, any last-minute comments?
No, I don't have any comments.
Okay.
Patricia, thank you so much for all the information. Very useful.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilmember Mensing?
No, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Just good luck.
Yeah, good luck.
We're rooting for you.
You're the keeper of democracy, really.
Here we are.
And we appreciate your service.
You have an awesome responsibility.
Periodically, if you hear us laughing in there, we have to have comic relief because if not,
Yes.
it's very stressful. So.
We totally get that.
Well,
Yeah.
I remind people 4 years ago there were only 2 votes between 2 of our council members. So, I mean, it can happen.
Wow.
And 3 years ago there was only, or so many years ago there was only 4 for Commissioner of Revenue 1 year.
Yes,
So
very tight elections for our
it can happen. It can happen.
Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Have a nice evening. All right. Okay, moving on. No recognitions. As an aside here, the podium microphone was not working properly for a certain period of time, and it was going to be checked on. Is it working now? Yes. It is. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Next on the agenda is consent agenda. Approval of the minutes of August 12th and August 18th, 2020. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All opposed, abstained, motion carries. Moving on to unfinished business. 8A is approval of software agreement with Dude Solutions LLC.
Yeah, this is just a continuing item from the last meeting where we briefed you up on the concept, the numbers, and then we came back with the actual draft agreement reviewed by the city attorney.
Okay, Councilmember Machado, any questions or comments?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing? Council, okay, well, no questions. Staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to sign an agreement with Dude Solutions Incorporated for administrative-related software solutions and technology services for the Department of Community Development at a cost not to exceed $62,410.66 in FY21, as presented, pending final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you. Next, we have resolution of Route 28 support.
Calvin, were you able to join us?
Yes, sir, I
All
am
right.
here.
All right.
Good evening, Mayor Rischel, members of the governing body, citizens, staff, and guests. The City of Manassas Park has been working since early spring to produce a pre-application and then final application for smart scale funding for Route 28 corridor improvements that extend all the way from the intersection of Manassas Drive into almost Fairfax County to the Prince William Fairfax border, that are part of a STARS study that was conducted by VDOT late 2019 through early 2020. Are 4 R-cut intersections, which are innovative intersections, and a median U-cut intersection. Those intersections are innovative intersections. I would encourage anyone that's interested in the innovative intersection approach to actually utilize the VDOT webpage and look up innovative intersections. There are videos, documentation on how those intersections work. The City of Manassas Park has completed the application. This is a resolution supporting Manassas Park's application. We had Prince William County mention support for our application, and a resolution and a Prince William County resolution. This is simply providing governing body support for our application for smart scale funding. It's slightly under $39 million with about, I guess, $24 million in construction costs, a large right-of-way phase, and a large design phase. But staff has completed the application. I believe you have a draft of that application attached to this agenda item for review. Does anyone have any questions about the project that I can answer, or any questions about the smart scale process, the application process? I'd be happy to answer them.
Well, thank you, Calvin. Thank you for all the work that you've done. I also want to thank Prince William County staff and VDOT for the support that they provided to our staff during the application process. So thank you very much. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
Yes, I have a comment. We need to secure these funds to improve a safe ride on 28 for all Manassas Park and our neighboring jurisdictions. Thank you so much. When are you going to submit this application, Calvin?
So the application was submitted through the SMART portal. I believe the applications will begin, the pre-application was already screened by Northern Virginia VDOT staff and scored into the system, but the final applications were actually due the second week in August. So those applications have already been submitted in the SMART portal. This is merely a resolution of support that needs to accompany the final submission to show that our governing body authorizes staff to submit such an application, and the governing body is in support of the application.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, no questions. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
Vice Mayor Banks?
I think he's muted.
Vice Mayor Banks, are you there?
I think he's muted. Oh, there we go.
He'll unmute himself. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Okay, Councilmember
I have a
Schuster?
few. I just, for Calvin, I just make sure I understand that our cuts are going to be at Browns, Maplewood, Leland, and Orchard Bridge. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then there'll be a U-turn at Birch. Is that correct as well?
The U-turn intersection is, did you say Birch?
Yeah, is that correct?
The U-turn intersection, I had it listed as Yorkshire Falls Grove. On one side of the 28, it's called Yorkshire Lane. The other side is called Falls Grove. Throughout the application, we name it as Yorkshire Lane / Falls Grove.
Okay. I'm sorry. That's why I wanted to make sure and clarify for me. I had another question about, we say it's right away, but I want to be clear because it's in the application here, is that how much of because it actually lists the places where we're going to have to do, or the construction will have to do right of way at GN Event Center, Wingate, Yorkshire Office Building, O'Reilly Auto Parts, and Lindsay Manassas Collision Center. So are we buying partial pieces of property there, or are we buying the entire business out at those locations?
I believe you actually just named the economic development parcels. Part of the smart scale process is that we evaluate economic development opportunities along the corridor. The criteria for submitting those economic development parcels is actually that there is an approved or in-process site plan. Those parcels that you mentioned, those businesses that you mentioned, are not the actual acquisitions slated with the project. They're merely economic development sites that are noted along the project corridor.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. That actually clarified a lot for me. All right. So are there businesses or significant pieces of land that are going to need to be bought in order to make the R-cuts a reality?
Yes, there are takings associated with the actual project. Some of them are partial takings, some of them are complete takings. The complete takings we tried to avoid them at all costs, but of course there are especially for the emergency signal, the turnaround lane, where the vehicles would actually need to have excessive space to turn around. It actually cuts so far into the parcel that it leaves a non-developable or trying to think of the correct zoning term here, but it's actually a residual that's too small to be considered developable. So in those cases, we go ahead and we offer as a full acquisition, take the entire parcel because the residual is not large enough to really be considered developable in that area.
Okay. Do you know which ones those are?
Well, I only know them by parcel numbers, but I do know the business owner names or the current business names.
But there will be several or a dozen, since there are going to be.
Yes, I believe the STARS final study that is attached to the application, and I apologize because you guys can't actually view the attachment in the draft application that was attached to this agenda item. But in the attachments, one of the attachments is the final STARS study. I can certainly forward you a link to that. It goes through parcel by parcel and discusses the acquisitions that are both partial and complete full acquisitions. So yeah, I believe there were 3 total acquisitions and 5 partial acquisitions.
That link would be helpful, and then Councilmember Shoemaker could look up that specific information.
I guess I was just a little concerned, only because, on the county side, the reason why they didn't select the other corridor for 28 was they didn't want to take, with property takings. So that's why I was just trying to kind of zone in on this one, because I know that was a concern for Prince William.
Well, it was the residential takes that the public was concerned about.
I had another question. I'm like totally drawing a blank, and I do apologize. So what is the time frame in terms of building this project or building the components for this project, Calvin? Is this a year? A year and a half?
Unfortunately, these funds don't become available until 2026, if I'm not mistaken. So the earliest that actual design could begin under this funding source would be 2026.
Oh my gosh. So we're talking 6 years out for even design to begin?
Calvin, does that have to do with the funding cycle that the CTB is on, Smart Scale is on?
Yes, that's correct. Since this is not part of the last round of Smart Scale, there was no application submitted for that. This is the next available round of Smart Scale funding. And so therefore these funds will not become available until out year.
Okay.
I guess it just, I know that's under our control, but it just seems like it's not helpful now to, the idea is that you have smaller projects that can do more immediate improvement, and then the immediate improvement's not for 6 more years, which is kind of, I know, and as I say, it's not in our control, it's the 7 of us and staff, but it's, 6 years is not immediate by any stretch of the imagination. They may do the widening before we get the smart, because they have the money for it, before we even get the money for the Smart Scale improvements. And that was my last question was, if the actual widening, which is what Prince William has voted to pursue, even though now they don't have all the funding at this point, does that make this project moot because the widening will actually take place first, and then they will make this null and void because the widening will have taken place by then?
I don't think so. No, their objective is to work together, to coordinate.
I'm just trying to figure out because, the widening of that.
I'm sorry, Calvin, go ahead.
That we're applying for today for the Smart Scale, they would attempt to incorporate these innovative intersections into the actual widening design, because let's remember that the goal of these innovative intersections is access control, and is very much intended to keep the primary phase, which is Route 28 north and south, moving without interruption, the traffic signals being the major interruption along the corridor. So it would still be a goal, even with the widening of 28. The widening of 28 may increase the level of volume that can occupy the lanes. It may provide more queuing in intersections and things like that. But these innovative intersection designs will actually keep traffic flowing on the primary phases without interruption.
Well, and another very important facet of that is accident reduction, which simple widening will not address.
Absolutely. I was just concerned about the projects working together, because you don't want to do the widening project and then do something else because we're pursuing this right after the road is brand new.
VDOT and Prince William County are fully aware of that, and they will work together.
Okay, cool. All right, well, I'm glad that Manassas...
The truth is that by deviating from the bypass plan and going to the Route 28 plan, the timeline for this project and the widening project are not that dissimilar. We would anticipate at least a year in design anyways, perhaps a year and a half for a project of this magnitude. So the timeline now for the Route 20 widening as opposed to the bypass would put these projects on a very similar timeline anyway, so it wouldn't really affect the timeline of the project to incorporate these improvements into the widening.
Okay. All right. I'm just glad that we can apply for this project, even though, for the folks at home, this isn't even in our city, but we're actually able to be the sponsors of this project, even though it's not in the city limits, because we have all taken 28 congestion very seriously, and we are sponsoring this, even though the improvements aren't technically in the city limits. It helps all of us, and it helps everyone have a better
Prince
commute.
William County had also achieved their limit for Smart Scale applications, and they could not they could not place this application because
Right.
that would have exceeded their limit, so.
I'm glad we can do
Yeah.
it, though. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, okay. So staff recommendation is that the governing body approve the resolution of support for staff's final application for smart scale funding for the Route 28 Centerville Road Corridor Improvements Project.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you very much, Calvin.
Thank you.
Thank you. Much appreciated. Okay, moving on to new business. 9A is purchase of replacement backhoe. Is Calvin still up?
Alan, are you on?
Excuse me.
I can get the technology to work. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Fantastic. This agenda item is for the purchase of a replacement backhoe. Our existing backhoe is model year 2008. We've had to spend more time repairing it. We're budgeted for $128,000 for its replacement between the general fund, water sewer fund, and the stormwater fund because all three groups use it. It's more heavily weighted toward the general fund and the water sewer fund at $52,000 each and $24,000 for the stormwater fund in terms of budgeting. The price we got for the cooperative agreement was $110,537 with the accessories included. I should note that our intention is to keep the existing backhoe for training purposes and to serve as a backup for our principal backhoe. Sometimes we have more than one job that we need a backhoe on, or sometimes we need two backhoes for the same job. The staff recommendation is the governing body approve the purchase of the replacement backhoe with its accessories from James River Equipment of the City of Manassas Park for a total not to exceed $110,537.
Thank you, Alan. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I almost called you Calvin. Okay, let's
That's a compliment there.
let's go to our folks at home. Councilmember Machado, questions, comments?
I don't have any questions. No questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I just have one question, Alan. How much do like the whole tractor cost? It seems like 110 for just the backhoe seems kind of pricey.
I'm not sure I understand the question. This is the entire piece of equipment.
Right, that goes on the back of a tractor or trailer or?
Oh, no. This is a standalone piece of equipment. You've probably seen these backhoes on job sites, digging.
Okay. Yeah, I thought it was just the arm of a tractor.
Oh, no. This is the whole ball of wax.
I see. Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Follow up, Councilmember Javed?
No follow-up.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks? I'm having trouble hearing you. Do you have your volume up? Vice Mayor Banks? Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mensing?
Just curious, was this on the CIP for this year?
It was, yeah.
I thought so. Okay, thanks.
Okay, Councilmember Shoemaker? Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents for the purchase of a replacement backhoe, John Deere 410L, and accessories from and installation of the same by James River Equipment for a total not to exceed $110,537 as presented, subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. Opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you very much, Alan. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you.
Okay, next we have IT window.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, go right ahead.
I guess maybe to a Laszlo question. I know we had a leasing program for all our vehicles. When do we want to include these type of vehicles in the leasing program as well?
Yeah, the enterprise leasing program is for SUV and below. So SUV pickup trucks, they don't have this stock available, this kind of vehicle. So many of our larger vehicles, ambulances, engines, and the big equipment that Public Works utilizes are not part of the enterprise fleet program. So we have to separately procure those.
The specialty vehicles?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Did that answer your question? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to 9B, Windows 10 Pro upgrade.
So Don, were you able to log back on?
Yes, I was.
All right.
I am.
Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor and governing body. We're looking at, with the computers we have right now, we have about 100 computers that are running Windows 7. We'd like to upgrade to Windows 10 to continue with our program as we will begin this year phasing out every year a certain amount of computers and replacing them until we're in a good loop of replacing computers every year. But until we do that, we need to take these and get them up to par to Windows 10.
Okay. Is that it, Don?
And that's it. I mean, it's a basic thing that software we need to purchase.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure I didn't interrupt you if you had more to say.
No problem.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
Yes. Hi, Don. I know that there is no more support for Windows 7, so this is needed. How long will it take you to do the upgrade to 100 computers, and what is the time range? Since I know that it can affect the city's processes.
Correct. Some of the main ones already have Windows 10. So what we have is we've got a couple of laptops and computers that we have right now. And as we upgrade those, we'll switch them out for the new ones, and then vice versa. As we purchase new computers, working with Dell, you'll see that soon coming up for that one, where we'll have everything already loaded on when we get them so that my staff doesn't have to do much of loading anything on them. They'll be preloaded to just add to the domain and go. It's not too bad of a process. It's going to take us the time. There's only 3 of us, staff. So everyone's been easygoing with us on that. And it's probably going to take us 6 months to 12 months to do it properly.
Oh, wow. Did that answer your question? Councilmember Machado, did that answer your question? I think you might be on mute.
Yes, I was on mute. No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yes, hey Don, how's it going?
Yes, going.
I got a question. There's a couple complaints about the Windows 10 being, compatible with other softwares and integrating it. What's your, professional opinion on the compatibility within the other city softwares if we upgrade to Windows 10?
Well, right now, our main city computers, we upgraded them. Any of the financial, any of the main ones, we already did. They're running fine on it. I haven't had any problems with those computers at all. The only problems I'm having now is Windows 7 and worrying about them with no updates. But yeah, we've been running some Windows 10. What?
Were any applications lost? Sorry.
No, we haven't lost anything. We're rebuilding from scratch, so we're just reapplying the apps back on, which takes a little bit more time. But our main software is the Windows Office, and with Keystone. Most of the other stuff it's smaller stuff. So no, we haven't lost anything, and everything's been running fine with Windows 10. The worst is people adjusting to the new layout of Windows 10.
And then how does I guess with the Windows 10 collect the data? Like, I mean, is there privacy issues?
No, we turned when you first install it, it gives you those all up front. We turn all of those off on that aspect. So you are able to turn that stuff all off when we install them.
Oh, yeah, you're talking about the privacy setting?
Yeah, there's probably about 8 privacy settings when you first install Windows 10 that are turned on that we manually turn off. You have the option to do the quick install or the manual. We do the manual. We turn all those settings off.
And do you think it's, because I mean, we carry a lot of sensitive information. Do you think that even turning it off manually will protect the city?
Yeah, I mean, Windows 10 is the only software you can use right now unless we go to a non-Linux-based type software, and then we'll have problems with our apps. Windows 7 is not stable as in safe anymore because there's no updates being run on it. So any vulnerability that comes out now is being able to be used. We have antivirus. We're having other software with my next presentation that we're putting into our network to work towards the cyber security of our network.
Got it. Thank you, Don.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
Thank you. No question.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions, thanks.
Councilmember Shoemaker?
My only concern is when you said it's going to take 6 to 12 months, if they're already not doing updates, I'm just worried that, if we still have a majority of the city running on Windows 7, and if it's not being supported, that it does create, a vulnerability. And we kind of know what software crashes are like around here. We've had a few of those. We've had one of those. So I just worry about between, tonight and the point when we get all of the things updated that we might be at risk. That's my only concern.
Did you want to comment on that, Dawn?
I mean, I would love to be able to, throw it out there quick, but there's no way for me to do that with the staff that I have. We're doing as fast as we can. There's still a lot of companies still using Windows 7. I'm not saying that's a good thing. We do have a good antivirus that we're using with that. So we're pushing that as fast as we can. And it may be less time than that. It's just that it just depends on what happens with everything going on right now. We're kind of busy.
Yeah.
Staying busy.
Yeah.
We may come back with the CARES Act Round 2 budget for some additional IT support because we're taking on a lot of IT initiatives right now related to COVID-19 and increased user friendliness with our residents and internal kind of remote work facilitation. All those different initiatives, we may need some additional IT support, so that may help.
Yeah, I just was worried about the registrar too, how sensitive that is going into election day. And
they're Windows 10.
Oh, they're already Windows 10. Good.
Yeah,
Thank you.
That's good.
I made sure mainly City Hall is all Windows 10. So anything to do with the finances, registrar, commissioner, revenue, treasurer, those have already been moved over to Windows 10 earlier
Okay.
for that reason.
Thank you, Don. And we know that your department is stretched. We know you're working as fast as you can. Thank you. Do you have a?
No problem. We're
No,
trying.
it's just a concern.
Okay, staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents for the purchase of Windows 10 Pro software for city computers at a cost not to exceed $12,981 as presented, subject to final city attorney review.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All op-
Aye.
Okay, all opposed, abstained, motion carries. And I believe you're still up, Don, for 9C, Aristotle Insight Cybersecurity Platform. Thank you. Go ahead.
So we're looking to start adding to our arsenal for cybersecurity. This is a very, I've been wanting to get this for a while. The software and software combination will help us with auditing, with keeping track on changes in system, with if there's problems with the bandwidth and where that problem is coming from, it takes it on, puts it all on one GUI platform that we can do that with. It lets us, many times I've had where I've been asked, hey, who was the last person to make a change? Or did this person open this? Or websites, failed logon, password reset. It's going to be an awesome tool for us to be able to drill down and do the different things a little bit easier for us, since it's all in one GUI base for us to do reporting and auditing of devices, updates.
Yeah, so just to add,
So that we'll be able to.
with us becoming more digital now with COVID-19, and we can't wait anymore for a more robust cybersecurity platform. That's why we're bringing this forward to you now. This was something that we would eventually want to do. We just didn't have the money, but now with the CARES Act funding available to help us expand our IT presence and engagement with the public, this is now a feasible project.
Oh, that's excellent. Excellent. Thank you, Don. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
I just have a question now that we are talking about VPNs. Don, how is the VPN working and how is the bandwidth?
Our VPN is doing pretty well. We are going to be looking at other solutions to try to ramp that up a little bit with the CARES Act coming up. Our bandwidth is very good. We've upped our bandwidth. We have 2 internet connections, one at PD and one at City Hall. Both of them now are at gig bandwidth. So I mean, we've done really well with that, and we have it so that most of the VPN traffic comes in through the PD, and most of the out traffic goes through City Hall. So that splits up the bandwidth right there on that level. Does that answer your question?
Councilmember Machado, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you, Don. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yes, I mean, this is very important. I think we should invest in cybersecurity. Just recently, Long and Foster was just the whole department, or I guess the brokerage got hacked by ransomware, and we can't even open emails from any Long and Foster agents because what they're sending with viruses and whatnot. So it's important, I think, in this age that we protect our assets and invest in cybersecurity and make sure that all our assets are protected.
Mm-hmm.
So if this is the best choice, then
Wow. Thank you, Hasib. Thank
It was
you.
one of the layers, yes.
Uh-huh. Do you have any further comment, Hasib?
Yeah, so I mean, you said one of the layers is this, it doesn't, I guess, have the full capacity of like firewall protection, keystroke protection, all that stuff, or?
No, this is a mainly monitoring system to help us monitor what's going on. So your cyber connection is never a one-stop shop. We have the FortiGate firewalls. That is one of our protections. We have our antivirus is another protection that we have that's pretty picky. We've had some issues with it blocking stuff. It puts stuff in the sandbox if it doesn't know what it is, and if we don't say it's a trusted. So anything new, it catches really quickly. And this just adds to our security and monitoring to help us.
I see. All right. Thanks for the explanation.
Okay.
No problem.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing?
No questions.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I'm glad to see we're doing this, and I'm glad that we have CARES Act money to do some things that we really needed anyway, and now we have a funding source to do some things that we really need to do. One of my friends I was talking to, and I said, he says, what are you going to do in your meeting? I said, I was talking about this, and he says, well, why is that important? I ended up going online, and this is what hit Atlanta like 2 years ago, and they spent, I mean, they're obviously a much bigger city, but they spent like $5 or $6 million in restoration and having to recreate all their systems because in order not to pay the ransom, because they wanted like $50,000 or $60,000 in ransom because they're a much bigger city. And so this is happening to a lot of municipalities because, a lot of small cities and counties can't afford this, and that's why it's so important. So I'm glad to see it.
Okay. You done? Yeah. Okay. Staff recommendation is that the governing body approve and authorize the city manager to sign the necessary contractual documents for the purchase of the Aristotle Insight cybersecurity monitoring platform and support from Sargent Laboratories, Inc. at a cost not to exceed $17,217 in FY21, as presented, subject to final review by city attorney. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. All opposed, abstained, motion carries. Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you.
Moving on to 9D, that would be MAP Clinic outdoor improvements, outside waiting area.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the governing body. Before I get started, I just want to say that Ms. Bridget Jennison, the MAP Clinic coordinator, is also on the phone to help answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
So, as you know, the Mason and Partners Clinic has been a great community partner for us, a wonderful resource for our community in terms of the critical healthcare services that provide, which include many things like school physical screenings, mental health services, and for the last several months, COVID-19 testing, free COVID-19 testing. And they do this for really the most vulnerable populations, the underinsured, uninsured, and low-income community. So really a wonderful resource for us, and we've had a great relationship with them, especially over the last several months. Because of COVID-19, they had to modify their operation a lot to include limiting the hours of operation as well as moving a lot of functionalities outdoor. Their facility is too cramped to accommodate all of the COVID-19 social distancing requirement. If I can direct you to this graphic here, you can see.
Hold on, because I'm not sure. At home, are you guys watching via YouTube to see the slides, or do we need to share the slides? We can share them. Okay, we'll share them, yeah.
This is really a small expense compared to what they've done for us, just with all the testing and everything.
Can you see that from home?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so this is their current setup outdoors. Staff went down and essentially conducted a site survey, walk the entire site and did some measurements. And the TO boxes essentially is what the Mac Clinic currently has set up. There are 4 stations, as you can see. The COVID testing is what they've been doing the last several months, which is the vehicular drive-by testing. The registration and tech used to be indoors, but that had to be moved outdoors. The COVID symptom patients, these are patients that have expressed symptoms, so we're not sure whether or not they actually have COVID. But it's a separate area that the Mac Clinic is treating the patient to sort of keep them isolated from the other regular patients, which is in the top left corner of the graphic. And you can see from the graphics, so the equipment they use are essentially your off-the-shelf 10 by 10 tents, the kind of tents you can buy at Walmart. They're pretty flimsy, susceptible to weather. We have one out here that broke because of strong winds, so not the ideal equipment to provide medical services under. And of course, the downside to this as well is they have to set up and break down all 4 stations each day, which take away their capacity to provide those services. Additionally, because of being outdoors, weather has had a very adverse impact on their operations. In the past month alone, they had to cancel clinic twice. And since they started moving things outdoors, they had to cancel clinic 5 times, equating to about 50 to 75 patients that they could not see. And these are patients that have had no insurance, so they really didn't have a lot of options to begin with. So because of that, we've been working with the Mac Clinic staff over the last month or so to kind of identify what kind of things they need to help improve their capacity to provide service for our residents. And we came up with essentially 2 cover metal shelter, steel made, 12 by 21, approximately 5 feet legs. These are 14 gauge and construction certified. They're obviously a lot more sturdy, more permanent structure than the 10 by 10 tents. They have a wind gust rating of up to 130 miles per hour, as well as snow load rating of 30 pounds per square feet. So they're winter rated. They can sit outdoors permanently or semi-permanently, and it allows them to essentially provide services year-round. This is primarily to provide them the capacity to provide service for COVID-19. As you can see, the proposed layout, the right tent or cover awning is going to be for COVID symptoms patients and testing. The left tent is for patients without COVID symptoms. The 2 tents for COVID testing as well as registration remains unchanged. Really the benefit for this is that they're able to continue to operate despite the weather. The equipment is a lot sturdier, and they're just able to have more flexibility in their operations. There's one change to the agenda item. We reached out to several vendors and we received several proposals. We identified one that best meets our needs in terms of price point, as well as timeline, as well as the equipment. The original cost was approximately $5,000 for both labor and supplies. We're currently talking with community development zoning right now to make sure that it meets permit. There is an additional requirement, or there may be additional requirement in terms of anchoring the awnings to meet code. And if that's the case, that's going to require an additional $5,000 installation fee. So that's why you see the change there in the agenda item.
We think it will probably be under 5,000, but we wanted to put that not to exceed additional. So it's not to exceed 10,000. So we don't have to come back if we have to bump it up a little bit.
That was my first question. Will they be anchored?
Yes.
Yeah.
The original design is the straight shot anchor, similar to your fence post installation. Mm-hmm. The additional cost would be, if the permit requires it, would be a J-hook anchor.
Okay.
But the original design is weather rated, as you can see.
Okay.
Yeah, so Chief Evans has been working with Calvin to review the structure, and Calvin was one that brought up for building permitting code requirements, we made that additional anchoring.
Okay.
That's why the price changed.
Okay, and thank you, Ms. Jennison, for joining us this evening.
I'm happy to be here. I appreciate all of Keith's work on our behalf.
Okay. Let's start with the folks at home. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
Keep it on the previous slide.
Yes, I would like to know how many patients have you seen these last 3 months, COVID and no COVID patients?
So we have been, we're normally open 4 days a week. We cut it back to 3 days a week. On average, we see between 10 and 20 patients a day. So roughly 10, 20, 30, between 30 and 60 patients a week. And that it ebbs and flows, but definitely our patient count has been increasing as of late.
Do you have
how many student physicals have you received?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
How many student physicals for a school year have you seen?
School physicals, did you say?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I just can't hear very well.
Yeah, school physicals.
School physicals. So we are now doing school physicals on Tuesdays, and we're doing 20 physicals per day. So we started that last week. So we've done 40 physicals in the past 2 weeks, and then we did some events on Wednesdays. So we've probably done close to 50 school physicals in the past month. And the numbers I'm giving you don't include the COVID sampling or the COVID testing that we're doing. So we're also a COVID sampling site, and we COVID sample twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Okay. Do you have a phone?
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, sorry. Question, I guess this is the site is for testing purposes only, correct?
We collect samples, and then we bring the samples to the Fairfax County Health Department lab, and they do the testing for us.
Right, so I was looking at the tent. Patients with symptoms, why would they be on site? How do we know they have symptoms?
Okay, so for COVID sampling, we have people that have cars drive up, and we test them in their cars. We obtain the samples while they're seated in their cars. Many patients don't have vehicles, and so they walk up. And so they may walk up for COVID sampling, and so we would do that on the side of the clinic away from patients that potentially, that are our chronic disease patients that aren't exhibiting any symptoms of COVID-19. We do an extensive screening for all of our patients. If they screen positive for any symptom of COVID, we see them outside the clinic on the opposite side of the clinic. So we keep the patients separate.
Got it. Thanks for the explanation.
Thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
Yes, I have a question about the COVID cases. Are you still seeing a lot of people participating and getting tested, or has the numbers gone down?
So I would say they have today, for instance, today we did not have many. We had fewer than 10 come in for COVID sampling today. But we've had days where it's upwards of 20 to 30 that are coming through. Again, it kind of ebbs and flows. I would say from a few months ago, the numbers are down. I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but for a time, several months ago, we were very busy. Upwards of 30 each day, Tuesday and Thursday.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Mensing?
How long does it typically take to get the results back?
We get our results back anywhere from 24 to 48 hours.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Okay. No follow-up? Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
And I just wanted to say thank you for what you're doing, and because there are still a lot of people uninsured, and actually with people losing jobs, actually more people are uninsured because you're likely to be insured through your workplace. So actually the work that you do is more important now even than before, because we have more people uninsured and with very few options of where they can turn to. So I just want to say thank you for your work. I'm glad that we can provide this to meet your needs, because this for us is a very small amount of money for the work that you've done for so many of our residents in terms of testing, in terms of the other services that you've been offering. So I'm glad you're in the city, and I'm glad you're helping our residents in our surrounding area. So thank you.
Is that it?
Thank you very much for saying that. We really appreciate it.
Yeah.
The other thing that we're seeing, as well as the increase in the number of uninsured, is the increase in food insecurity. That's another issue that we try to assist with as well. So this pandemic has been very challenging for the population that we serve.
Yeah, we can just imagine what that would be like. We thank you very much for everything that you do, and we are thrilled to be able to have the CARES Act funding to be able to do this. And with that, staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize the city manager to negotiate and sign an agreement for the purchase and installation of 2 new exterior covered canopies for the MAP Clinic facility at a cost not to exceed $10,000, using CARES Act funding as presented, subject to final review by city attorney.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Motion carries. Thank you, Keith, and thank you, Ms. Jennison. Have a nice evening.
Thank you. We've appreciated the support that you all have given us, particularly Keith. So thank you, Keith, very much.
Okay.
All right, take care.
Okay, moving on to 9E, which is COVID-19 related overtime costs. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the governing body. So in FY20, our fire department roughly incurred around $6,000 related to overtime and direct kind of admin leave expenses related to employees who had tested positive for COVID-19 and being actually hospitalized for a while as well. And that's a continuing cost that we've incurred. Looking at kind of the CARES Act definitions, you can see that the purpose of the funds are for any necessary expenditures incurred due to the public health emergency. So these were necessary expenditures that were incurred that were generated by COVID-19. If COVID-19 didn't happen, then those employees wouldn't have been out, and we wouldn't have had to use overtime to continue to provide fire, EMS, and police, so public safety emergency response support directly during the pandemic, which was one of the key goals of the CARES Act. If you look at the treasurer's language on all the things that are kind of authorized, it's always slanted towards public health departments, police, fire, EMS, and social services, or any departments that then directly focus on COVID-19, like our Parks and Rec was up until August 1st. That's what the funding is intended there to support those efforts. So this one is clearly one of those types of expenditures. So I'm asking for your approval to incorporate this expenditure both back in FY20 to make sure we cover those costs that were already incurred, and in FY21 do the same thing, and to plan in the updated CARES Act budget to cover this direct overtime cost related to COVID-19 from employees being out, and therefore the fire and police department having to have extra overtime to cover for those employees.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. And be sure to tell staff how much we appreciate them. I mean, we really do appreciate all the service, and especially the frontline departments that place themselves at risk. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Machado, comments or questions?
I don't have any questions, just a comment. I want to echo your statement. Thank you for your service to all the departments, especially the first responders. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Councilmember Javed?
No questions.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
No questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Mensing? No. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I had one. Is the number, which is I don't know what the number is. It's the $3,054.72 and the $2771.52. Was that already paid out of city money that CARES money would then reimburse general fund for because it wasn't originally budgeted that way?
The 3,000, yes. The 2,700 we had already covered with the original CARES Act budget when we came up with the admin and sick leave program to cover employees when they're out, to cover their leave essentially when they're out because they tested for COVID-19. So that was already covered, but we just wanted to show. Chief Soper just wanted to show kind of the full financial impact that we
absolutely. So then this is the $3,054.72 that will be reimbursed to the city's general fund from CARES Act because it's direct.
Absolutely.
So
what we'll do is Paul's going to create a separate. She's already done that. Created a separate, general ledger line item for overtime related CARES Act funded overtime.
Okay.
And so we'll just actually shift some of the overtime that was in the current GL for the city, shift that down to the CARES Act, so it's covered by CARES Act.
So for FY20 that we've already spent, and FY21 which we've already spent, and we will continue to spend if necessary. And so just so we're clear, so this is for people that were out for. They may have been exposed and need to be tested, and they had to wait for testing, so there was overtime to cover for the people that were out. Is that correct?
The majority was actually people who tested positive.
Okay.
So we had multiple employees at the police department and then at the fire department, so we had to cover during that time. Those are usually correlated. While we had people who tested positive, we usually had other people who were out until waiting to get the results back as well. So those usually occur at the same time, so it caused a lot of overtime being incurred.
Right. No, and I wasn't questioning. I just want to make sure that so that the public too is clear about this happened and this is how we're moving the money because the city's already spent it for that purpose, and then we're going to get reimbursed from the CARES Act money back into the general fund.
Just something I missed when we developed the first round.
That's fine.
Overtime costs related to when employees were out. We thought about taking care of employees, but we also we realized that we were starting to incur overtime costs to deal with that issue. And
right.
As we looked at the CARES Act language, I thought it was clear that that's clearly a component that would be reimbursed.
Absolutely. I mean, and it starts adding up, and as you said, with when we had the one spot in the police department where some people were out, it adds up very quickly. So, all right, thank you.
We're very fortunate to have CARES Act funding.
We are.
Staff recommendation is that the governing body authorize city manager to incorporate overtime costs resulting from COVID-19 impacts to the fire and rescue and police departments into the city's CARES Act budget and the mid-year FY21 budget amendment.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Sorry.
Aye. Abstain.
Okay.
Abstain.
No opposed and one abstention. Was that Vice Mayor Banks? For the record, was that Vice Mayor Banks who abstained?
Yeah, I think.
Okay, thank you. No, we needed to clear that up for the record.
All right, for him, yeah.
9F, discussion of private personal property tethered to city property. Okay. Who wants to take the lead on this? Dean, are you there?
I am here.
Okay. Can
you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
As we know, there was a post on Facebook with a photograph of a bicycle tethered to a sign. We don't want to discuss specifically that, although we will be, but in general, I think we should have a discussion of private property tethered to public property. It would seem fitting that we would enlarge the discussion. What is your opinion, City Attorney?
Well, I had a really hard time hearing you, but I will say that just for the issue of bicycles and other personal property attached to or tethered to city property, we don't really have legislation right now that addresses this. We do have, in our charter, we do have the ability to remove a public nuisance. I'm not sure this rises to that quite yet. We don't have any guidance on what qualifies as a public nuisance. The city of Richmond has essentially said if it looks like it's abandoned
And, they haven't really codified what it means to be abandoned, but in discussions with a newspaper, they said, well, if there's flat tire, missing tire, parts that are in disrepair, so they don't really even have a good definition of it. And so it's a little bit problematic. Now, we could just say that you can't do it at all on city property, which kind of takes care of the problem. But if you wanted to allow that, since some people don't have places to chain their bicycles, if you wanted to allow it, you could say something like, I don't know, if it's there for 30 days and we can show it's been there 30 days and nobody's moved it for 30 days, then we're going to treat it as abandoned and we're going to confiscate it, take it to the police station, and then by law we have to hold on to it for 30 days and then we would go ahead and auction it off. I mean, that's one possibility. So I just throw that out as something you could do. But I think the purpose of this, I believe, was to kind of discuss whether or not that's something we want to do, and if it's a public necessity. So I'm kind of open to whatever you folks want to do and provide direction.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Machado, your thoughts?
Yes, if we are going to pursue for any ordinance to correct this situation, so people don't leave bicycles or anything unattended on city's property, how are we going to let the public know? Are we going to post signs everywhere, or how are we going to let the public know?
If you're asking me, I would suggest that we do something similar to what we tried after we had the big public uproar over suddenly enforcing the parking regulations. Essentially put it out there on Facebook, the city's website, let people know this is something that's going to happen on some specific date that's a few months down the road. But that's what you folks would decide and direct us to do.
Thank you.
Okay. Would it be the case then, Dean, that we would have a warning period? Or is that not?
I would strongly recommend that because we haven't enforced anything like this ever. It hasn't really been a problem before. With a lot of the new development in downtown, it might start becoming a problem. So it's good to get out in front of it. But for the few people who do this, we haven't enforced it at all. It's going to come as quite a shock if they come back and their bicycle's gone all of a sudden and they previously left it there for 6 weeks at a time.
Yeah, so
I was specifically referring to some type of a written warning that could be attached to the bicycle or whatever the.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So we would take the approach where we advertise it on Facebook, on the city website, the police site, and for a period of time to get the word out. Reverse, 311, getting it to everyone's phones, letting people know about this, and then we'd probably start off with notes first, just kind of a warning, letting them know, just like we did with the dog thing, where we put up on the variable message. We probably use the variable message boards as well. But I'd like to first be able to put a note on someone's bicycle before, so they can contact us and let us know that it's not abandoned. Yeah. It's just, but again, we need to Dean's point, you first need to decide whether you think it's okay for people to park their bikes like that. That's question one. And if it's not, then we're talking about how do we enforce it, and that's how we would enforce it. We would provide some kind of warning and let them know to contact us to let us know that it's not abandoned, that they do move it before we go out and execute. But that's if we're enforcing it. If you think it's fine, for people to do that, then, or I guess you could prohibit it altogether and say that no one can park their bicycles that way, and then that just makes it easier for us, where we just, we just go ahead and start taking them. But we'd still want to advertise for a while, like we did for the leash laws as well, before we go in and start enforcing.
Okay. Councilmember Javed, your thoughts?
Yes, I mean, the problem is, I guess, there's nowhere to park these bikes, right? So, I mean, we could maybe put a bike rack in some locations, like we are doing with the downtown. At the end of the day, I don't want to discourage bikers or bike use if that's their mode of transportation. I think it is going to be counterproductive with our mobility plan that we have in place with our downtown, and decreasing our, our traffic on the roads. At the end of the day, if we wanted to enforce something, I would suggest that we, like you said, tag the bike for like 10 days, let the owner maybe be aware of it. And then if it's not removed within the 10 days, then go ahead and impound it. But then the question arises, if you impound it and an individual comes to claim the bike, how can you prove, how would he prove that the bike is theirs, right?
Well, they're supposed to be registering the bikes with the city. So, I mean, that's another issue, I guess.
I'd never even heard of that.
A follow-up, Councilmember Javed?
Never even heard of that before.
Yeah. Asib, do you have a follow-up?
No, I mean, I'm just thinking that, I lived in Seattle for like a couple years, and we had an issue where a lot of people did park bikes on trees and city signs. And what happened was, like, there was a lot of theft, and people would damage city property to get to the bike. And I guess they passed a law a couple years later saying, not to park it on city property, and then actually fine was higher than a speeding trip ticket. I remember, but at the end of the day, I think we should find a way that these people can park bikes. I don't think we should discourage it, but if we're not going to allow it, I think we should provide something in replacement.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas.
I have no questions, thank you.
Any thoughts on whether to enforce, how to enforce?
I guess ideally it would be like our residents bringing it up to us, and then we can just go check it out.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
I'm for enforcing it, and I like Dean's idea of the 30 days, and along with providing a ticket on the bicycle. I know it sounds like not much of a problem for us because we're out in the suburbs, versus like a city like DC or even like in Europe where they bike a lot, and it can be a nuisance in terms of parking and where they're allowed or not allowed to park. So I think the 30-day idea is a good one. That's it.
Okay, that's it. Councilmember Mensing?
Agreed. I think we should allow people to park their bicycles and attach them to city property, but within reason. I think the 30 days sounds reasonable.
Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
I guess I saw the one on Manassas Drive. It's, chained to a street sign, speed limit sign or whatever it's attached to over there. But I don't know that it's a big problem. I mean, I don't know that. I think Roma's looking for a solution to fit a problem that I don't know that's widespread. I guess at a minimum, if we decided we were going to enforce something, you would put like a tow tag, which we do on cars for 10 days, or we put the big bright orange ones on there, and then they have 10 days to move it. And if they don't move it, they get towed. I guess we could do the equivalent for a bicycle and put it like in a plastic bag, and then you attach it to it or something. And even though I guess it's good to have something on the books if it becomes a problem later. But I don't know that it's a big problem now, and I'm not sure. Because this would only be on public property, on public right-of-way, correct? Would not be on any private property, wouldn't be on HOA-owned property, wouldn't be on...
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to regulate that. Yeah, so it'd be on public property. And to your point, there's multiple ways to think about this. So we could say we're allowing it, right? We're not just doing a blanket. It's just what if somebody actually does abandon their bicycle? How do we have the authority to then remove it? So I think that's a good way to think about it. Like if we want to facilitate, bike riders in the city and allow them to park it, they just need to prove that it's not abandoned, right? if that's the route we want to go. Where we need something at least is, what do we do essentially when it becomes trash? And you see this a lot in apartment complexes where people leave stuff outside and they move away and they just leave it there. And usually the apartment complex will just give a warning, hey, we're going to do some sweeps here, go ahead and move stuff over. We need that kind of authority where if someone just abandons their bicycle, how do we go ahead and then impound it at that point? But is our bicycle the only thing that this would apply to? No, and we'll deal with trash. Calvin's department deals with trash all the time. That's put out on the right of way that we end up clearing out. Yeah. But this one's like actually chained, so it's a little bit different with this one where it's not necessarily trash. It's another form of mobility, right. And they're parking it there, right, on right of way, which other cars will park on city right of way. So it's done a little bit differently. But it's just like, I guess my question is does this apply then? Is this solution that we're thinking about apply to anything besides bicycles? Dean, I would think we already have it for trash, right, Dean? So.
Well, it's trash. Yeah, you would be able to do trash, but what about other personal property? So bicycles are the most common one. I can't think of anything else, but I'm sure there are other forms of personal property that might be tethered to public property.
So this would be personal property that's tethered to public property. Is that kind of where we would go with this, to make it clear?
Well, that's how it was laid out. In the opening of this discussion, if it's bicycles alone, there's a definition of a bicycle in state code that we could use. But what about like mopeds and stuff like that? I don't know if those are chained up or not.
I guess my concern then is that the way you said it, which, not either here or there, but that means if it's not chained and locked to it, if it's just sitting there like that one is, but it's in the public right away, but it's actually not locked and nobody steals it because it's so nasty, it's not worth stealing, then we can't do anything about it because it would have to be locked to it. And if it's not locked, we can't do anything.
That's a good point.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to consider it trash at that point, but it can't just be defined as trash because it's not tethered. You're right about that.
Just to be careful, if we tailor it so narrowly, then if there's another thing, then it wouldn't apply to that, and then there'd be no way to.
So it would have to be specific to like bicycles, mopeds, other forms of mobility that can be parked on a sidewalk, or essentially that's where we're going at. But I guess there needs to be kind of consensus. Do you all want to even allow this, or just blanket prohibition, or allow it, but when one becomes abandoned, then we have the authority to clear it?
That seems to be the middle ground, doesn't it?
I think too is.
What is considered abandoned, though? I mean, what's the definition of that? I mean, I know that Dean touched a little bit on that.
Yeah. So if they haven't.
Be working, I know people that work overnight shifts at Walmart that bike over there. They leave at like midnight, come back at 4. I mean, the general public might think it's abandoned, but it's actually in use. Yeah,
that's why we would go with the 30-day. We would put some kind of tag, right? And they would come back and notify us, no, it's not abandoned. I move it, and they would. So that's how we would deal with those. So it would have to be a period of time. It can't just be overnight, because you're right. Some people might keep it there for a day or two. But what we don't want is someone just to walk away and leave it there. So we need to have some kind of timeline. It can be 30 days, 45 days. Kind of whatever you guys think is reasonable.
So I have a question. What if the person is notified? So presumably the 30 days, if it's there for 30 days, then there would be a note put on? Is that? Yeah,
that's probably the best way. But then we'd have to come up with a period for how long we keep the note there before we actually get rid of it. So it's probably I'd prefer a 2-step process where we tag it after a certain period of time, and then we give them a certain period of time after it's tagged to then come and let us know that no, it's this is just where I park it. It's not abandoned.
So then what if they moved it to another sign? Then
we know it's not abandoned. Yeah.
Start all over again.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully the people wouldn't then report them. I mean, clearly they're active bicycle users and they're just parking it there.
Right.
So I think maybe in this case someone reported that bicycle because they've seen it there a long time and they're inquiring whether it's abandoned or not.
Okay.
Yeah. or they just are against bicycles doing that. That's
Well, and I suspect that with this particular case, there may be an objection to the fact that the individual chose that sign in front of their home to place the bike there. So I don't know what the governing body feels about that. What are your comments, everyone? Let's start all over again. The middle ground that was discussed, Councilmember Machado, what do you think of that?
Yes, I think we need to enforce it when the bicycle thinks that it's abandoned with a warning, 30 days warning. I think we should start with that. I think we need to enforce to keep the city in order. Yeah.
Okay. Councilmember Javed? The 30 days, what do you think of that?
Yeah. So are we talking about, I guess, the 30 days?
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
So 30 days, and then it gets tagged for a number of days.
Yep, probably 15.
And if no one gets contacted, then gets impounded.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes.
Yeah. Could you say that again?
Yeah, so probably 30 days just to, we would verify that it's not being actively moved. If it's still there for 30 days and there's no evidence that it's being moved, then we put a tag on it and either they have 15 days or 20 or 30 to let us know that no, that's just where they park it, but they are actively using that bicycle. It's not abandoned.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with that. I mean, if there's some mechanism that you can tag the bike and have them come explain that it's abandoned or not abandoned, I'm okay with that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sendejas, your thoughts?
That's fine with me. Thank you.
Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
I support it.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing? Okay. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Yeah, maybe we need to encourage people to not do that on street signs, and maybe at the community center where we already have bike racks installed, maybe here, incorporate them at the new city hall so that we're kind of channeling them maybe to areas that already have bike racks instead of to random street signs like stop signs and speed limit signs and things like that, because then I think the concern is maybe that my neighborhood looks junky because there are now bicycles like attached to every sign that there's available.
And I see your point there, but I don't think channeling might not work because I suspect that this individual may be picked up, that's where his ride picks him up.
Oh, yeah.
He bikes there, leaves his bike, and then picked up.
Goes with somebody else, right?
I suspect, yeah. Okay.
And also, just as a side thought, we don't want to make being homeless illegal because people who are homeless, by definition, don't have a lot of money, don't have a home, and are likely on bikes or walking. And so, I definitely don't want to, say, well, we're going to take your stuff because you're homeless and you have nowhere to put it, but yet I don't want our neighborhoods to
not
look
everyone
junky.
can afford a vehicle.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, but also we don't want neighborhoods to look junky. So I understand that part too. So
it's a delicate balance.
Yeah. I could sign on to the 30 days, maybe do the equivalent of a toe tag.
Okay.
That we do for the cars, do it, for the bike or for a moped, and then deal with it from there.
Okay. So do you have enough guidance to be able to have staff bring something back?
Yeah, I think so. And we probably want to look for something to kind of wrap around the bar, right? The color, obvious thing that can wrap around there.
Yeah, the bright orange. The car ones are bright orange, I think.
Correct. So, so I guess a simple ordinance, Dean, do you feel comfortable we can knock something out?
Yeah, I think we can pull something together and bring it back.
Okay. Thank you, Dean. Thank you.
We should also let the public know about registering their bikes as well. That might not be public knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's a whole chapter in the city code, but people might not be aware of it.
I think there's a lot of folks not aware of that. Okay. Okay. Well, then that takes care of that discussion. Moving on to 9G, Virtual Learning Childcare Program.
We don't have anything in our packet for this, right?
No, I literally finished this. That's why it's not going to pretty. I finished this just right before we started.
Okay.
Was this emailed over? I don't see this.
I'm going to share it. Now. Give me a sec. I'm going to share it right now.
Not quite ready yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
1 second. Okay. Can you see that?
Hmm.
Can you all see that at home?
Can you see?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. So, for reference, for anyone watching, the city coordinated with the schools about a week and a half ago to generate a survey of Manassas Park City School parents to find out kind of what the child care demands are based off of the or mainly virtual learning for the schools for at least the fall winter semester. So the schools worked with us. They sent out a survey to parents, and we got the results. I received the results this afternoon from the superintendent. So I just wanted to go over some of the highlights with you all and talk about some of the next steps. So there was 550 parents who filled out the survey, 346 in English, and then 204 in Spanish. A key thing that I highlighted here is that 225 out of those 550, so exactly half there, or not half, but almost half, actually opted to have their children for in-person learning. So that means the majority of the people, the respondents, just already selected all virtual. And why that number is important is because that's really the key group that we want to support, because they already had in their minds planned that their kids were going to actually go back to school this fall, whereas the other participants had decided to go virtual for the first 6 months. And what this you'll see with the data means, it could very well mean that some parents may have changed their mind, because you can see them looking for some other public option for childcare. But that would be the primary kind of group cohort that we would want to support, because they opted in for in-person learning. That's what their expectation was. And then you'll see that there's some childcare needs, and I apologize, I already see some misspellings there. Again, I just finished this right before this meeting. You can see the third bullet there. So 387 of the total respondents reported that the child or no one in their household has one of the underlying health conditions that are a concern for COVID-19. So that's good. That's something we want to avoid is putting anyone at risk through this program. And then here's an important number: 363 of these parents actually have to work at a job site. So they can't work from home. So that makes kind of childcare a challenge for them. That's a good majority of the total participants in the survey. And then childcare was rated as somewhat a concern. So it was on a scale of 1 to 5, it was a 3 on average. So not overwhelming 5, but not also 1. So it's halfway right there at 3. So it's a concern, but it's not an overwhelming concern. But you can see from the next bullet that 299 of these parents are interested in an in-person full-day childcare program done by the city. So almost 300 participants out of the 550 would want to see something like that. And then 161, they were just interested in what we call an extended care program, which is in the afternoon between 3 and 6 p.m. They were interested in that. So that 299 is an important number, but really that 225 I think is the key number for us for kind of what the target group is of those parents who had opted in already, were expecting their kids to go to school, and are also having some childcare issues as a result. So likely correlated across all these where they have to go to work at a job site, and they had opted their kids in for in-person school, and hopefully correlated with they don't have, because the majority don't have any underlying health concerns at the household. So hopefully that's all neatly correlated there. A key question that was asked, a response, sorry, that line on the bottom there for GoToMeeting blocks it out, but So a small fee for the program would preclude 49% of the respondents who did the English survey. It would preclude them from participating in the program. So roughly half of the participants say they wouldn't be able to participate if a small fee was charged. And then 65% of those that filled out the Spanish language survey said that they wouldn't be able to participate if a small fee was charged for the program. So are there any questions about the specific survey results before I go over the kind of recommendations?
Okay. Councilmember Machado, do you have any questions so far?
Yes, it looks like a small fee will be a problem, so we need to probably discuss about that later.
Mm-hmm. Right. Councilmember Javed, comments?
Nothing at this time.
Okay. Councilmember Sendejas?
So I have a comment. So 387 do not have underlying health conditions at the household level. I have a concern with that number because I know that a lot of people in our community do not go to a doctor to get tested or a physical checkup. So for me, that is a number that seems inaccurate based on my experience working with folks that don't necessarily go to the doctor.
Okay. So because they don't go to a doctor, they may have an underlying health issue and they just don't know it. Is that
Yes,
what?
exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Banks?
I agree with Councilmember Machado that the small fee is going to be an issue. I just had a question for Laszlo. The 299 parents, that's a large number. Is that being shared with, or is the survey results being shared with the school division?
Yeah, it was actually, they did the survey, so they share the results with the city. So they're aware of it.
Thank you.
Okay. Is that it? Vice Mayor Banks?
That's it.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing?
None at this time.
Okay. My only question is, can you share this electronically with us so that we can have it? Okay, thank you.
Fix the misspelling.
Thank you. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Yeah, it just seems like a huge number of people. How many people do we run in our regular extended care program through the regular year?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have that off the top of the head. I don't know, is Jay on? Hey, Jay, are you on?
Yes, sir.
Hey, do you have that number readily available?
I don't have the exact number, but it fluctuates. We do so many different. There's 3 different kind of options. There's a morning option only, an afternoon option only, and then an all day option. So collectively, if you added up all of those groupings, we average probably around recently 40 to 50 total kids on average at any given time in the program.
So I guess, I mean, I know without saying what your options are, to try to ramp up from 50 to 300 is just, I just don't think it's just.
No, that would not be possible. It would have to be first come, first serve.
Right. I mean, and I actually, I think they should be charged. I mean, it is a service. We expect cost recovery from Parks and Rec. I mean, we ask for that number. They put it in the report every year to then say we're going to give all day service for free. How much, I mean, we'd have to hire staff to be able to run those kinds of numbers, because when they do those kinds of numbers during the summer or during the full service weeks like Easter, the week between Christmas and New Year's, those kinds of weeks, that's a all staff on deck. That's high schoolers and college students are working, and we're not going to have that kind of labor all day because those kids are going to be at school, their own school. So that labor pool isn't going to be there to run these kinds of programs. So, I mean, it sounds great and there must be a need, but I'm saying the cautionary is this isn't the normal part, and we don't have the available labor. We don't have the available people to be able to run hundreds of kids all day. I mean, for possibly 12 to 13 hours a day, because Regular.
Can't do hundreds of kids. We don't.
Well, I know, but that's what I'm even saying that before I see the next slide is we just don't have that kind of capacity.
Well,
to
let's
be able
let
to run it.
Laszlo finish his, and then maybe that'll answer some of your questions.
Survey
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, it says that they can't afford a small fee. Did they explain what a small fee was? Was it $10? Was it $100? Was it?
No, we kept it very vague and we use the word small. So, yeah, I didn't create a range.
So what are these people going to do if there's no city program or very limited? I mean, if they say they can't, 50, 60% of the people can't pay a small fee for their kids all day, what do they do with them when they're...
Respondents.
Yeah. What I'm saying is, what does this group of people do during the regular school year with no COVID? What do they do?
Well, their kids are at school.
Yeah.
Right, but then what do they do with them after school? Because it says 161 are interested
They
in
have
the
had
after-
arrangements with neighbors. The children may have gone home under the watchful eye of a neighbor. We don't know. There's probably 100 different scenarios there.
The problem is I don't have the third option, which is just during school hours. So the assumption there is not that they need the extended care program, right? It's just they want some kind of, I think when they look at full day, the hours that school was in session, they always plan for their kids to be at school. And that's the biggest barrier for them right now, is that they won't be. So that's because if you look at how many of them actually have to work at a job site, and that's a big problem with the Hispanic community as well. When you saw the CDC report, and we know it, they have to work on actual job sites, and that's why their numbers are higher as well. So we're very concerned with what's happening with these kids, as Randy is from a CPS standpoint. He's very concerned about what's happening with these kids as well.
I definitely understand. I mean, I'm a person, I don't have kids, but I have to report to work. I've never had a day off during COVID. So I completely understand that you're expected to go to work or you're going to be fired. I mean, we have an employee at my job site who is doing FMLA leave in order to stay home with her kid because I think they're in Prince William, but because she's refusing to send them because of COVID concerns. And she may be out through the whole first semester from work at my job. So, but not everybody has that ability.
Do you have any more questions on the survey itself?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think I'm good.
Okay.
The purpose of the survey was really to determine, is there a demand? Because for schools, they've only received one phone call from a concerned resident about this. So we really wanted to get some better metrics. Just because people aren't calling doesn't mean they're not concerned. Some people may be, especially from our community, the Hispanic community, they may be shy, and they may not actually, where cultures like from Guatemala and Salvador, they're generally more shy and they don't like to engage with the government, and they may be a little bit concerned about that. So we wanted to try to capture, just by filling out a survey, what the real demand is. And that's why this is helpful. You may be right, we may not be able to actually help all these people, and that's a shame, but we wanted to see what the data was, what the data say in terms of demand for a program like this. That was kind of the first question that we wanted to answer. That's why we did the survey. I don't have the full program for you right now. I have a meeting with the departments this coming Friday where we're going to hash out kind of the details. We really wanted to see, because if it came back with just one, like what was reported, we know that we don't have to kind of spin our wheels here. Not to say that Jay's already started the planning for this. He's done extensive work already, but we're going to go into full mode on Friday, if you all agree to it, to plan what we can do. We have some initial assumptions and some initial ideas for what we can do, but you can see that first bullet there. Per the survey, there appears to be a clear demand for a program like this, a child care program publicly done for the community during all virtual learning in our city. So I'm looking for some kind of authorization to go ahead, finish the planning, design a full kind of child care program at the community center at a safe capacity and at, to your point, a staff capacity, which right now is around 50, but again, I don't want to, that's why I say around, because it can go up, it can be positive or minus. Jay has to finish the analysis of what the safe way to do a program like this. But you saw on the previous slide, there's going to be at least 200 parents potentially who may need the service. So unfortunately, to the mayor's earlier point, it may have to be first come, first serve. But I would ask that we potentially reserve some slots for kind of the Spanish-speaking community as well, because they may not be as quick, to apply for this. And we want to make sure that we're covering the most vulnerable members of our community as well.
Yes.
We've seen the highest
Yes.
positivity rates in Northern Virginia and across the country as well. So I think I would say we need to do some first come, first serve. We probably want to segregate some slots as well for our Hispanic community. But we need to do the full program logistics. We have the CARES Act Round 2 funding. That's what's going to enable us to do this, because you're right. We're going to essentially shift the Parks and Rec staff again to be a COVID-19 entity. And they've been open now for a month, and the numbers of people showing up at the community center is very low. It's understandable. People are still very concerned to go out in settings like that. So we're ready to kind of transform them back into a COVID-19 response element with this as our priority, but also doing the food program. You heard earlier today from the MAP clinic about still food insecurity issues in our community. So we're thinking it's probably a good time to go back and continue to address that with all the economic issues that we continue to face. But we want your permission to go ahead and fulfill the planning, come back to you all on September 15th, but also maybe send out applications before that time, to actually start getting some applicants in for the program, and to come back with you all with how many people actually applied so far, what does the program look like, what's the cost, what's additional staffing, because Jay's going to have to hire some additional staffing from and we're going to have to get probably some licensing from the state social services departments. That's why Randy's going to be helping us out with that as well from a child care standpoint. It's regulated differently from the Department of Education, which authorizes schools to take care of kids. For us to do that, it's done through the State Department of Social Services. So there's a few things that have to happen before we do that, but we'd at least like to get some application, like to open up the applications and see, are people going to start applying, and try to aggressively inform our Hispanic community that this, to go ahead and send us your information, fill out the application, so at least we can get an idea of how many people are actually applying, and then we can come back to you with the full program details and get your authorization green light on September 15th if you want to go for it, and start right after that to start helping out our community, at least with the 50. If we see much more applications than that, I think we need to have a more serious conversation with the schools about potentially utilizing some of their facilities as well. Their staff
because there's obviously a need if that's the case.
Right. But it could be, people filled out the problem is the school's going to start before we do this, so they may find some other solutions by that time. So we want to see, are we going to get more than 50 applications or not, or whatever the number is that Jay determines he can safely manage at the community center with social distancing from other people coming in.
And we're very fortunate to have the CARES Act funding to be able to, okay.
That's what's going to enable.
I didn't realize we were going to have CARES Act funding.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start the round. Let's start again. Councilmember Machado, your thoughts?
Please proceed with this initiative. It's going to be very helpful. We can use the CARES Act money. Please proceed. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you. Councilmember Javed?
Yeah, I was going to say that, I don't know if you guys remember my email using the CARES Act for this. I was not in favor of a fee, and then if we could use these funding to do that. Another point I wanted to make was that the survey for the in-person attending, once they find out the city's offering childcare, do you think those parents would then switch to virtual? Because I think the only reason they're doing in-person is because they need to go to work and their kids need to be dropped off to school. That number is going to increase if they find out.
You're saying
like you said, we can't accommodate everybody, but
you're saying that.
Are you going to say something?
Yeah. Are you saying the demand for the childcare you think is probably bigger because you had, I think it was 2,600 students opt for in-person versus, or I think it's like somewhere around 25 actually, something like that.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it could very well be, and but again, I mean, you see that our capacity, to Councilman Shoemaker's point earlier, it's limited. So I think we have to think about how, it's first come, first serve. That's how the city of Danville is doing it. I'm not sure how the Fairfax County is doing it. We'll continue to look at their program, but they're doing it in a bunch of their schools. That's where Fairfax County is actually doing it. So they're, Jay, do you remember how many schools they were using for their program?
Yes, sir. They were using 37 facilities.
So they had a lot greater capacity to service their population. For Danville, they were using their two community centers. They're doing a first come, first served basis as well. So I wish we could do more, but at least if we can help out some people right now, that's better than not. The other thing that needs to be decided that I didn't put on here but it was brought up, was do we want to go with that fee schedule that we discussed kind of via email with kind of, if you're for your reduced lunch, do we want to go with $0? And if you're not, kind of a smaller fee to at least charge something. And because the concern would be if people already have paid childcare, we don't want them to substitute with this and then quickly apply for
Right.
that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but clearly those who are on the free lunch program probably will correlate strongly with those that say they can't participate if there's a fee.
Okay.
Right? So I guess looking for consensus on how you want, because we have to probably specify that on the application.
Maybe if they are free or reduced lunch or can show evidence of losing a job between the time that they were evaluated for that and now. Some people might be out of work.
Yeah, because the free and reduced lunch is easier for us because we can just ask the schools.
Yeah, but just remember, free and reduced lunch. I mean, reduced lunch goes up to like $60,000 and $70,000 of income. I mean, they're not poor by the definition of locations than people that are on TANF and and SNAP and housing assistance. They're very different income standards.
Do you want to make this income based then?
Well, I mean, because remember, we have 65% free and reduced lunch in the school division.
Yeah,
So,
that's what I'm asking.
I mean, so that's not really a good breaker because that
Income
means
in this area is different. I mean, the figure that you mentioned does not go as far in Southside.
I wouldn't make that argument. Yeah, I'm just saying is that the people that are truly poor that are making 30,000 need more help than somebody that's making
No, I see your
significantly
point.
more. Especially if we only have a few spots. It's.
So do you want to go towards more kind of income thresholds in terms of if you have certain income thresholds, we waive the fee?
Yeah.
We could use Randy's, like there may be people on SNAP, there may be people on TANF, housing assistance, like Section 8. I mean, those would be the people that would need the most help.
How would you do the income requirement, though? I mean, that would be.
We would have to involve the Department of Social Services in the application process if we're going to do. That's why but that could work out. I'm not sure if schools would share the free and reduced lunch data with us either. So either way, we have to ask somebody.
Yeah.
I feel, if we send it to Randy's department, we can process that. It's going to be extra processing for Randy's department.
Do you know what the income requirement is for a free preschool?
Oh, okay. For the kind of the federal funded preschool program you're talking about?
Like VPI and.
No, I mean the schools that provide free preschool, but with a limited income, with families with limited incomes.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the income thresholds are there, but we can do some research if that's what we want to go with.
Okay.
But I guess the point is, are we in agreement that if there's a certain income threshold, there's no fee? If there's above the income threshold, there is a fee? Is that the consensus?
Okay.
Or?
Oh, let's go back to Councilmember Machado. Your thoughts on that?
Yes, I think we can work together with DSS.
Okay.
Probably parents need to do the application through them.
We would do it through Parks and Rec, but Parks and Rec would have to then coordinate with DSS, and probably DSS would have to communicate with the applicant. But I still want to keep it centralized at the Parks and Rec department.
Okay.
Is that agreeable?
Okay. Sounds good.
Sounds good? Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Councilmember Javed, are you in agreement with that?
What was the question?
Yeah, I'll restate it. So is there a consensus that whatever income threshold we come up with, if you're below that threshold, you don't pay a fee. If you're above that threshold, you pay a small fee.
I mean, my position was no fee for anybody that needs childcare services. I mean, this is an expense that is not the family's fault. Because of the COVID, the schools were shut down. Now they have to scramble to figure out childcare services. So I don't think they should be penalized with a fee. That's just my position on it.
Okay. Councilmember Sendejas?
I agree with Councilmember Javed. Obviously, we don't know what could happen to a family that's doing well financially in the meantime, and then like, next week they don't have a job. So I think it'll be fair to not have a fee.
The high uncertainty in our society today. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Vice Mayor Banks?
I agree with Councilman their house Chavez and no fee.
Okay. Councilmember Mensing?
I'll go with no fee.
No fee. I also go with no fee. Councilmember Shoemaker?
Well, I was going to point out, and I know that's not our decision, but, you know, and I know we're supposed to be looking at the medical stuff and we're looking at the, you know, the COVID and what the numbers look like. But, you know, at some point, if you've got hundreds of kids at home by themselves or their parents are fired because they can't go to work, you know, at some point schools are going to have to reopen. I mean, I know it's not our decision. We can only serve 50 kids. There's 300 people that are interested. I mean, at some point, I'm not trying to say I'm unfeeling or unthinking, but the reality is, you know, schools may have to go to hybrid, you know, because we can't have people fired because they have to stay home with their kids, you know, because we don't have spots for them.
Well, that's not, like you say, that's not for us to decide.
Right. But I mean, the reality is we're going to have, if we can only service 50 kids, we're going to have hundreds of kids at home, possibly by themselves, or with maybe older siblings all day with no parent supervision.
I think we get that.
Yeah.
I think
I'm
we
just
do.
saying is that I'm just concerned.
So fee or no fee?
Well, it doesn't matter because if you've got 5 people that said no fees, it doesn't matter. But I just don't, I think this is not a good setup. Like this just doesn't look good. Like I see lots of problems with lots of kids at home by themselves because that's what's going to happen. We have lots of kids at home by themselves, and that really concerns me.
That concerns all of us.
May I ask a question?
And I wish we had the power to control even a part of what's happening, but we don't.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Of the 200-something survey who said that they were interested in 299, is that answers to survey, or is that could represent each of them have 2 children in school? So we're talking about.
You could have. You're absolutely right. It could. Those are parents. So
that number is double at least.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there certainly could be a.
Whoa. Okay.
Kid in each family. So you're right. The number could be a lot higher in terms of kids.
So there could be a situation where, say, we can take 50 children. The 50th parent has 3 children, so that would put us up to 52.
Yeah, so we have to be careful with how we're managing that. We don't want to be able to. So let's say that let's imagine that the number is 50. We've taken 49th, and then we get a few applications. Unfortunately, we'll only be able to take the next person who applies who only has 1 child.
Okay. Okay, I see. Okay, well, do you have enough guide? Okay.
Yeah. So you essentially have the green light to keep developing.
Yes,
program.
keep developing it. Yeah, and we'll hope for the best.
Can I have one more question?
Yes.
Do you know, well, it might be a rangy question, but one adult, like I guess the equation, like how many adults per child needs to be supervised?
I think it's an age. So I don't know if you're asking, let me answer what I know, and then let me see if that's not what you're asking. So children 12 and over can stay home by themselves. I'm not sure if that's what you're asking, without all adult supervision.
No, I'm saying if all 50 kids come to the community center, how many adult supervisors do you need for 50 kids?
What's the ratio?
Social services.
Yeah. So that again, we're going to have as part of the licensing application that will have to do with the state. That's where we'll get that guidance. I know, Randy, if you know that off the top of your head, I'm not sure if Randy's on or not.
Yeah, we would need to know, is the ratio 1 to 5, 1 to 6? We're
We're going to have to know that
yeah.
for kind of staffing purposes, and when we get approval from the state to do this.
Up to 12, the older kids. I remember because my mom used to do it for years. I think it was like 12. It's like if they had a class like a 24, they would have like a teacher and an aide. So they would two adults. Yeah. But yes, I think
it
it's
depends on age too.
Yeah, the younger kids need more attention than the older kids.
That's the other thing too, and I forgot to mention that. So we're only going to make this available for like Danville and Fairfax County for K through 6.
Okay.
Because the other kids can technically stay home.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
It's still
So
not ideal for them. I agree with you.
thank you, Laszlo. Thank you for all the research you did on this. And Jay, if you're there, thank you very much for the research that you have done. Much appreciated.
Sure, no problem. A lot of our team members have been doing a lot of the heavy lifting on this, so they certainly deserve the credit on it.
Okay, wonderful. Thank them very much.
Very lucky to have the Parks and Rec department.
Yeah. Manager's report.
Is there extended programs currently?
What was that?
What was the question?
I was asking Jay if his extended programs are open currently.
No, sir. The preschool and the extended care, those have kind of been temporarily suspended until things are a little more stable.
Yeah, we're essentially following kind of the school schedule for that, and we wanted to shift to kind of the child care program.
Is it possible, and I don't mean to put a wrinkle in this, but if you think that there's more demand for just the after school, say like 3 to 6-ish, is it possible to put a group over at Signal Bay under the pavilion, make it an outdoor group, and you could have 10 or 20 kids over there in addition to the people that you have at the community center?
Like after school kind of outdoor activity program.
Yeah.
It's something we can look at, but again, that probably would involve additional staffing for those departments.
That would be weather dependent also, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'd have to cancel for
Well, over there, you can be under the pavilion even if it's raining, and it has a bathroom facility there.
Yeah, I think the lighting would be the big concern. I mean, if it's raining.
It's not the best possible circumstances though for childcare. It's possible.
That's how they ran the summer camps for years.
Yeah.
And people didn't realize they were over there at Signal Bay all day. With lightning.
A lot of teens, I mean, to be honest, it's 50% of the people who are showing up at the community center right now are teenagers. They're looking for something to do.
Wow.
So I think that's actually not a bad idea to help kids stay involved and physically active. We can do it safely. It's something we can look at.
Yeah. Okay.
For the manager's report, so the thing I have to report is we did get the HOA signature about an hour before this meeting for Mosby Court. Mosby Drive. So Alan sent the mobilization order to the contractor to start tomorrow. So they have kind of milestone 1.
Excellent.
And they're incentivized the quicker they can get to milestone 1, which is actually opening up a road, a lane for traffic. They're incentivized to do that, so they get a bigger payment for that. So they're on the clock to kind of get that lane open for our residents.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for everything you did on that. That's.
Well, thanks to Calvin and Alan because they really.
Thank you, Calvin. Thank you, Alan.
I'm so glad that's resolved.
Okay. Yeah. And that's it?
Yeah,
okay. And we have no closed session. So do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I think it's raining.
Opposed, abstained, motion carries. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, everyone.